Tucker Carlson interviews Vladimir Putin. I'm Gage, and this is America Divided. 268 days until Election Day in America, and recently Tucker Carlson dropped his exclusive interview with President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and I gotta say, it was definitely an interesting interview, to say the least. Coming out of it, it was over a 2-hour interview, and coming out of it, I have definitely changed my outlook on both Russia and the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and honestly, guys, it is definitely worth the watch. It is 2 hours and 7 minutes. Putin knows his stuff. And in today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about the interview. Also go in on, because the mainstream media and the left are currently having a meltdown because of the interview, because apparently journalists aren't allowed to speak to the opposition, which is like, I think that's kind of crazy, but that's the world we live in. And Putin definitely had a lot to say about a lot of things. Now, Tucker Carlson started off the interview, and it was a very slow start. Vladimir Putin basically spoke about 1,000 years of history in the first 30 minutes. And as Tucker said, you've probably seen the clips, he thought that Putin was filibustering. However, he wasn't. In order to get to where we are today, you need to know our history. That's how you make it so history doesn't repeat itself. That's how we don't have another World War II with Hitler or the Nazis. You need to educate people on the past so that they don't make mistakes that lead us back to the past. Very common knowledge. Now, Tucker Carlson asked a very simple question to Putin. Who blew up Nord Stream? And Putin had a very funny answer. Watch this.
Who blew up Nord Stream?
You for sure.
I was busy that day. Nate, do you have I did not blow up Nord Stream. Thank you, though.
У вас лично, может быть, есть алиби. У вас лично.
You personally may have an alibi, but the CIA has no such alibi.
Do you have evidence that NATO or the CIA did it?
Вы знаете,
You know, I won't get into details, but people always say in such cases, look for someone who is interested. But in this case, we should not only look for someone who is interested, but also for someone who has capabilities. Because there may be many people interested, but not all of them are capable of sinking to the bottom of the Baltic Sea and carrying out this explosion. These two components should be connected. Who is interested and who is capable of doing it?
But I'm confused. I mean, that's the biggest act of industrial terrorism ever, and it's the largest emission of CO2 in history. Okay, so if you had evidence, and presumably given your security services, your intel services, you would, that NATO, the US, CIA, the West, did this, why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
In the war of propaganda, it is very difficult to defeat the United States, because the United States controls all the world's media and many European media. The ultimate beneficiary of the biggest European media are American financial institutions. Don't you know that? So it is possible to get involved in this work, but it is cost prohibitive, so to speak. We can simply shine the spotlight on our sources of information, and we will not achieve results. It is clear to the whole world what happened, and even American analysts talk about it directly. It's true.
Yes.
Putin said it was you, and obviously Tucker was like, I was busy that day. But no, it's true. Like, Vladimir Putin, like him or hate him, and there's a lot of people that hate him, right? There's a lot of people that hate him. He's not an idiot. He's not an idiot whatsoever. And, the guy, I love how he said, because Tucker asked, you could win with propaganda. Just show people what happened. And he made a very good comment. The US controls everything. The US controls all the media, European media, worldwide media. They have their hands in every pie. Honestly, that was a very, very good response from Vladimir Putin. And it's true. It really is. It's all about this agenda that the left have, the DNC has, the Democrats, the ruling class. And Tucker asked another question throughout the interview, and he asked Putin what his thoughts were on the USD. Watch this.
So let's just give one example, the US dollar, which has kind of united the world in a lot of ways, maybe not to your advantage, but certainly to ours. Is that going away as the reserve currency, the universally accepted currency? How have sanctions, do you think, changed the dollar's place in the world?
Вы знаете, это одна из грубейших
You know,
стратегических
to use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the US political leadership.
доллар. Это основа основ могущества США.
The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power. I think everyone understands very well that no matter how many dollars are printed, they are quickly dispersed all over the world. Inflation in the United States is minimal. It's about 3 or 3.4%, which is, I think, totally acceptable for the US. But they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? It is about the emission. Nevertheless, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world. As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake.
Now, Putin made comments on the USD, inflation, and I may disagree with his opinion on US inflation. I think it's been pretty ridiculous, but he is right. We do print a lot of currency, and we use it as our main weapon to continue to have power in the world. USD is essentially the main currency in this world. Yeah, not every country uses it, but it makes the world spin. Now, a very hot topic conversation, something a lot of people want to know, was Russia and Ukraine. And Tucker asked Putin why the West is opposed to peace in Ukraine. And well, Putin said this. It's very interesting. Make sure you watch this.
The war, though, also, I mean, I guess I want to ask one more question, which is, and maybe you don't want to say so for strategic reasons, but are you worried that what's happening in Ukraine could lead to something much larger and much more horrible? And how motivated are you just to call the US government and say, let's come to terms?
Послушайте, я же сказал.
I already said that we did not refuse to talk. We are willing to negotiate. It is the Western side, and Ukraine is obviously a satellite state of the US. It is evident. I do not want you to take it as if I'm looking for a strong word or an insult, but we both understand what is happening. The financial support, 72 billion US dollars, was provided. Germany ranks second, then other European countries come. Dozens of billions of US dollars are going to Ukraine. There's a huge influx of weapons. In this case, you should tell the current Ukrainian leadership to stop and come to negotiating table, rescind this absurd decree. We did not refuse.
Sure, but you already said it. I didn't think you meant it as an insult because you already said correctly, it's been reported that Ukraine was prevented from negotiating a peace settlement by the former British Prime Minister acting on behalf of the Biden administration. So of course they're a satellite. Big countries control small countries. That's not new. And that's why I asked about dealing directly with the Biden administration, which is making these decisions, not President Zelensky of Ukraine.
Но если администрация Зеленского на Украине отказалась от переговоров,
well, if the Zelensky administration in Ukraine refused to negotiate, I assume they did it under the instruction from Washington. If Washington believes it to be the wrong decision, let it abandon it. Let it find a delicate excuse so that no one is insulted. Let it come up with a way out. It was not us who made this decision, it was them. So let them go back on it. That is it. However, they made the wrong decision, and now we have to look for a way out of the situation to correct their mistakes. They did it, so let them correct it themselves. We support this.
Honestly, I was not surprised by Putin's answer, but I was surprised to learn a lot about the history. Vladimir Putin, and I don't know if many of you guys know this, but you can fact check this just by doing any minimal research. Vladimir Putin many times expressed interest in Russia joining NATO. He wanted to become an alliance because when you're a big country, a big landmass like Russia, and you're as powerful as you are, why not join everyone else at the table? It's going to benefit you and it's going to benefit everyone else. When you're allies with the US and all these other countries, it just adds to your power. Now, he said something in the interview which I found very interesting regarding that he asked a president, and I believe it was George Bush Sr., about this, and he basically said that it wasn't possible. Now, he did mention in the interview that he came to Kennebunkport, Maine, which this is well documented, and went fishing with Bush, and they discussed essentially having better relations. But the West doesn't want that. The elite don't want that. And why don't they want that? Putin said it very well. It is essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, but it is essentially a money game for them. If we have an enemy and we're at war, there are people getting shit rich off from it. And that's the truth. People are getting extremely rich off from the war in Ukraine. Putin essentially wants what he was promised many years ago, or his country was promised many years ago. And that is to essentially return land that was once Russia. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from listening to the interview, Putin doesn't want the entirety of Ukraine. That is far from the truth. It's literally just a little bit of land that was promised to be returned to Russia that was never returned. It seems to me like this is just a long game of politics. And like I said, what would the world be without an enemy? That's why they don't want to join forces with Russia. That's why they don't want Russia and NATO, because the US can win by brainwashing people in the US and Europe by saying Russia's the bad guy, Putin's the bad guy. Now, I'm not saying Putin hasn't done anything wrong. I'm sure he's done a lot of wrong. But the fact to say he's a war criminal, in my opinion, is kind of a little too far. The man is essentially Russia first, and I think that should be the leader of any country. For the US, it should be America first. For Canada, it should be Canada first. For the UK, it should be United Kingdom first. But people don't like that. People think that, especially for the US, that we should be here protecting every single country on this planet, except for our enemies, of course. Russia is evil. That's what they want you to think. But after listening to this 2-hour interview, I've really changed my perspective, like I said at the beginning of the episode, because I don't think Putin's a bad guy at all. And that might be unpopular, but I really don't think he is. I think the man wants peace and prosperity and to preserve his country's history. And I think that's exactly what I want for our country. I want to preserve American history. Why are you taking down those statues? Why are you trying to cover up what happened in the past? To make you feel better about yourself? Why? So in 100 years we can redo the past, so the wrong people get in power and shit happens. They want you to forget about the past so that you'll mindlessly vote for these politicians so they can revert to the old ways. History is important. History is very important. It helps people learn how things used to be. And that's very important. And Vladimir Putin wants nothing more than his country to prosper and win. And that should be how every leader is. Every country should want that. Why is that a bad thing? It is funny because Fox News had to talk about this. Yeah, I know. They fired their host of their most rated show. And then a handful of months later, maybe a year, or a little bit later, they put this on their network, Tucker Carlson Network. It's just hilarious to me. It is hilarious to me that people are pissed off at Tucker for being a journalist, for getting the truth. Tucker, I have to say, I am proud of you. I am proud to share a state with you. And honestly, this was probably one of the best interviews you have done. I really encourage all of you guys to go down and watch this interview, find it on X, and literally put it on your TV and just watch it, because I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. Now, there were some things, there were a lot more said than what I showed in the episode, but I feel like I don't want to take away from what the interview was, and I want to encourage people to go watch it. We're living in a very weird time right now, and even Putin knows that. Listen, guys, thank you all for watching America Divided. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow, and share. I hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. And look, you guys have been killing it on the episodes, but hey, I've been Gage. I'm signing off. Goodbye. God bless America.